Adam was Carl's immediate superior and the person who had introduced him to the industry. He respected him tremendously. He had watched Adam in action and knew he was aggressive in certain things he did, but he always got results. Wide-eyed, he stepped toward Adam.
Mr. Handley, what are you doing here?
He asked fearfully.
How do you know Damon?
Carl couldn't understand how Damon could possibly have offended so many people in high places.
How do the lawyers know this idiot?
He wondered.
Are they here to humiliate him too? I hope they don't think he's with me.
But he started to realize that something wasn't quite right when nobody replied to him, or even looked at him, so he kept quiet. The atmosphere was extremely uncomfortable as the group around the table expectantly watched the three newcomers.
Babe.
Jenny piped up and broke the awkward silence.
I think this is enough. I don't think we should bother ourselves with this loser any longer. Let's eat.
She stroked his arm and looked up at him.
Oh, I can't wait until I get you all to myself later.
She said suggestively, and then giggled. Carl was in no mood for Jenny at that moment, and he pulled his arm away as he wished she would shut the hell up. He was extremely stressed at what was taking place. Adam noticed that Damon appeared unhappy about something, and his gaze found Carl, who wished the floor would open up and swallow him whole. The last thing the three newcomers wanted was for Damon to be unhappy about anything. Adam walked around to Carl and glared suspiciously at him with furrowed brows. His eyes were mere slits.
Carl Remington, may I ask what are you doing here?
He demanded. Carl gasped.
Oh shit,
he thought.
He really has come to see Damon?
A light bulb went on inside his head.
Damon is the Mr. Hemsworth everyone's been talking about. But that's impossible.
He argued with himself. He knew that the Laurier family's businesses had been taken over by an extremely powerful entrepreneur. Damon was the last person on Earth he would have imagined capable of doing such a thing.
But he drives a van.
He silently protested.
This has to be a joke,
he thought.
Mr. Handley, what's going on?
Carl asked quietly, looking confused. A snort was Adam's reply as he turned away from Carl. Adam then smiled at Damon.
Mr. Hemsworth, should we all sit together and eat?
He suggested. Damon stood where he was, realizing that these were his subordinates. He leaned on the back of the chair in front of him and tapped his fingers. He tilted his head as he addressed the three men.
I'd invite you to join us for a meal, but it's clear I'm not welcome at this table.
Carl and Jenny were mortified. None of the group could believe what they had heard.
Is Damon really the Mr. Hemsworth they're all talking about?
Jenny wondered in panic.
He must be very wealthy if Carl's boss wants to join him for a meal.
This can't be happening to me.
Carl groaned inwardly.
Okay, I get what's been going on here.
He looked at Carl and without hesitation said,
Carl, you're fired. I need you to leave.
Carl gasped in horror.
But Mr. Handley, what have I done?
You dared to offend Mr. Hemsworth. I can see exactly what's been going on here.
He is the Mr. Hemsworth they've all been talking about.
Carl silently confirmed. The last thing he had expected was for their little charade to actually come true. The atmosphere in the room had changed dramatically. The women who had ridiculed Damon all looked as white as sheets, as it sank in that Damon, the university student they belittled, was the famous Mr. Hemsworth. They were also astounded that the Laurier executives had just fired Carl on the spot. That brought home how important Damon was. Jenny started to cry.
Damon, please don't let them fire Carl.
She pleaded noisily.
If I've ever meant anything to you, please save him for me.
She stood up and knocked her chair over.
Please, we're old friends, and I was only joking earlier.
She begged. Tears streamed down her pale face as she held her hands together as if praying. The other women started mumbling among themselves that they were also old classmates. Their attitudes had done a 180 after finding out how rich and powerful he was. Damon didn't say anything.
They looked down on me for so long,
he thought, trying not to feel angry.
but suddenly, I'm their friend. It's amazing what money can do.
Even Gabriella stared up at Damon in disbelief. After she had seen his van, she had gathered that he was wealthy, but she hadn't understood just how wealthy. Eventually, Damon indicated for the servers to extend their table so the three executives could join them. Meanwhile, at another table in the restaurant, a man and woman were in a heated discussion.
Noah, are you serious? I don't think I can do it.
Fortunately, they were tucked away on a corner table so Damon hadn't spotted Jessica and Noah.
Of course I'm serious. Do you have any idea just how wealthy Damon is? It's time to get our own back.
But where did he get the money from? To eat here costs a small fortune.
Do you want to help me take his money or not?
Noah asked, starting to sound annoyed. Ever since the Hudson family's collapse, Noah had felt so demoralized that he had almost lost the will to live. He knew no lifestyle other than that of being wealthy, so Damon was his only hope of recovery.
I wish I could take every cent he owns.
Noah thought, seething. The woman chewed her lips while she contemplated the dilemma she was in.
Please listen to me. I'll really work hard on my career, and once I start making money, we can live together and open a small business.
I'm from the Hudson family. I know how to make money, and my family has all the connections we need. I just need some funds to get started.
Jessica slowly nodded.
Okay then.
She was wearing a very sexy dress that had slits right up to her hips. Her long, slender legs hinted at the possibilities they revealed with each step she took. She stood up and sucked in a deep breath in preparation to play her part as a server for a chance encounter with Damon. After Damon had finished his meal, Jenny started begging all over again, but he paid her no attention. He bade Adam, Sky, and Sean goodnight and told them that he had appreciated their time. Then, he stood up and pushed his chair in.
Right, I'm ready to go.
He stated as he looked around the table. His gaze settled on Gabriella next to him.
Are you coming?
She nodded and allowed him to pull her chair out. She was a caring and compassionate woman, certainly not a gold digger. She had been friends with Damon right from the beginning, even when he was less fortunate, and she wasn't about to throw herself at him because he had become wealthy. She felt there was more to a relationship than money. Jenny continued to harass Damon as he and Gabriella walked out of the restaurant. She became incensed when she saw he had no intention of helping Carl.
You're an arrogant pig, Damon Hemsworth.
She screamed at his back.
I think this was all a scam you set up. I don't believe for a minute that these people really work for the Lauriers.
She stopped chasing him and continued.
If you're so damn wealthy, why are you driving that heap of garbage? You wouldn't have to park on the road.
She continued to scream insults as she stomped her feet with her arms straight by her side and her hands balled into fists.
This is hilarious. Only someone stupid like Gabriella would fall for your tricks.
Damon and Gabriella kept walking. He couldn't believe how furious Jenny was, or how foolishly she was behaving. He understood that nothing he could say would stop her tirade. It would only fuel it. Gabriella had had enough of Jenny's bad behavior. She stopped walking, turned around to face her, and angrily put her hands on her hips.
Jenny Langford, what did you just say?
Oh, stop pretending.
Jenny spat. She refused to stop the argument, but continued.
You're just jealous of how powerful my boyfriend is and want what I have.
Gabriella couldn't believe how narrow-minded Jenny was, and she shook her head in disbelief.
Stop pretending to be so high and mighty. Weren't you the one who keyed Damon's van earlier?
She asked as she raised her eyebrows questioningly.
You can't deny it because there are surveillance cameras in the parking area.
So what if I did?
Jenny retorted.
In fact, I did it on purpose. Here, this should cover it.
She said as she took $150 from her purse and threw it at Damon.
That should be enough to repair that heap of junk.
Gabriella threw her head back and laughed.
Do you think that's a normal van?
She asked disdainfully. Jenny smirked.
Of course it is. I looked it up online, and it's just a stupid, everyday van that didn't even cost $10,000. If Damon's as rich as he's making out to be, he would have bought a luxury vehicle.
The rest of the group had slowly sauntered outside to hear the argument, and Gabriella burst out laughing at Jenny's ignorance. She clearly had no idea about cars or vans. Gabriella shifted her weight to one leg and crossed her arms.
Let me give you a quick lesson in vehicles. That's no ordinary van. That's a luxury 4x4 van that only successful business people drive because they're way too expensive for normal people to own.
She explained condescendingly.
Gabriella doesn't know what she's talking about.
Jenny thought disbelievingly. She took out her phone and quickly researched everything Gabriella had told her.
Oh my God.
She thought in amazement.
She's right after all. We were taking photos in front of Carl's car, but it should have been Damon's van in the photos because it's worth loads more.
It cost a lot more than $10,000 with all the bells and whistles. I'd hazard a guess and say that it'll cost in the region of $10,000 just to repair the scratch you gave it.
What?
Jenny gasped in horror. Ignoring Jenny,